Hi, and welcome to video 3. In this video, we're learning how to graph a quadratic equation in standard form, and we're also reviewing how to factor quadratic expressions when the a value is greater than 1. So we have a step-by-step list that will help us graph quadratic equations in standard form. Just as a reminder, standard form of a quadratic is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So step 1 of graphing is finding the axis of symmetry, and we learned how to do this in the previous video. We have a formula to find the axis of symmetry. It's x equals negative b over 2a, where a and b come from the a and b in standard form. Next, we find the vertex, the same way we did in the previous video, and then we just use a table of values to find a few more points, and we connect our points with a smooth curve to make our parabola. So we'll do a couple of examples, and then I'll let you try some on your own. So first, I'm going to rewrite this to look more like standard form. So this is really 1x squared plus 0x plus 0. These are the same thing. This is just a lot more to write. So then to find the axis of symmetry, you use your equation x equals negative b over 2a. The b value here is 0, and the a value is 1. When you simplify this, you just get 0, so the axis of symmetry is the line x equals 0. So on the graph, what that looks like is a vertical line at x equals 0. And then as a reminder, this is the line that cuts the parabola in half. Then to find the vertex, it always lies on the axis of symmetry, so it shares the same x value as the axis of symmetry. And then we take that x value and we plug it into the equation to see what y equals. So when we plug in 0 for x, we get 0 squared, which is 0. So the vertex of this parabola is the point 0, 0. What we're going to do is we're going to take our vertex and we're going to put it in the center spot on the table, and then we're just going to put the next two biggest x values and then the next two smallest x values. From there, we just need to find the y value of each x. So we're plugging negative 2 in for x, and we need to do x squared. So negative 2 squared is positive 4. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. 1 squared is 1, and 2 squared is 4. So then we plot these points. We have negative 2, 4, negative 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 4. So this is the parabola, the graph of y equals x squared. Notice that the axis of symmetry that we drew does cut the parabola in half into two equal parts. For the domain and range, remember the domain means all x values that our graph includes. So this graph goes to the left forever and it goes to the right forever, so the domain is all real numbers. The range is all y values. So we have a smallest y value here of 0, and then it just gets bigger from there. So y needs to be greater than or equal to 0. All right, we're going to jump down to number 3 here. This one is only slightly more tricky because we just have more numbers to deal with. So the same process, the axis of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a. In this problem, b is negative 8, so we have negative 8 over 2 times a is negative 1. So this is positive 8 over negative 2, which is negative 4. So the axis of symmetry is x equals negative 4. So if you draw that vertical line, it would be at x equals negative 4. That's our axis of symmetry. So then to find the vertex, we plug in negative 4 for x, and we find what y equals. I'm going to show my work off to the side here. plugging in -4 for x, we get y equals negative, and then -4 squared minus 8 times -4 minus 17. So this is negative, and then -4 squared is 16. This is plus 32 minus 17, and that equals -1. So then the vertex is the point -4, -1, right here on the graph. In the last lesson, we learned that if you have a negative a value, that means the parabola should open downwards. So once we find the rest of our points, we should expect this parabola to open downwards. So look out for that in the next minute here. So then to fill in the rest of the table, you just need to do the next two highest x values and the next two lowest x values. I will do one more of these and then I'll let you do the rest on your own. So I will plug in the point -6 for x, and let's see what we get. So we have -6 squared minus 8 times -6 minus 17. So that's -36 plus 48 minus 17, and that is -5 if you type that in a calculator. So we have the point -6, -5. If you would like to test your skills with plugging in these x values, feel free to pause the video and do that now. But I will just fill in the rest of the table with the x values. So you get -2, -2, and -5. So then when you plot these points, we have -4, -1 already, -3, -2, -2, -5, -5, -2, and -6, -5. Connecting those with a nice smooth curve, there's our parabola. Okay, one note about your homework, actually two notes. On your homework, you don't actually have to draw the axis of symmetry. That's not actually part of the graph, it's just a feature of parabolas, but you don't need to graph it. Another note is your homework directions say you must plot 5 points, including the roots and the vertex. So what that means is you need to do a table of 5 points. And remember, the roots mean x-intercepts. So on this one, remember an x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. We have one x-intercept right here. And on this graph, we actually have no x-intercepts. On your homework, every single problem is going to have x-intercepts. And there's a couple of them where your graph might not go far enough. So you might need to extend your table a little bit more. For example, add one more x value on either end until you find your x-intercepts. Okay. So now the last thing we're doing in this video is we are reviewing how to factor quadratic expressions when you have an a value that is greater than 1. So the first method I will review is the AC split method. So as a reminder, the AC split method is called that because you need to multiply a times c. So 7 times 8, and that's 56, and that's what goes on top of your x puzzle. Then your b value goes on bottom. Numbers that work, multiply to get 56 and add to get 15 are 7 and 8. So then the split part of the AC split name comes from splitting that middle term. So then it's 7r squared plus 7r plus 8r plus 8. So we just rewrote 15r as 7r plus 8r. Then you do your factor by grouping. So in this first group, we factor out our greatest common factor, which is 7r. And 7r times r would give us 7r squared. 7r times 1 would give us 7r. And then we do the same thing in the second group. Our greatest common factor is 8. And in the parentheses, again, we're left with r plus 1. With this method, you need these two sets of parentheses to match so that we can factor that set of parentheses out. So one of our factors is r plus 1, and the other factor is whatever numbers were out front of those parentheses, so 7r plus 8. As a reminder, you can always check your work by foiling out the answer you get to make sure you're right. So if you multiply this, you get 7r squared plus 7r plus 8r plus 8, and combining like terms here, you do get back to what we started with. So this is our answer factored form. Okay. Our other method is the box method. It starts the same way as the AC split does by making an X puzzle. And again, you multiply A times C. So in this problem, it's negative 18. And you put the B value on the bottom, negative 7. Factors of negative 18 that add up to negative 7 are negative 9 and 2. So from here, you create your box. In the top left, you put 2n squared. And in the bottom right, you put your C term, so negative 9. And in the other two boxes, you put, instead of writing negative 7n, you use your X puzzle to write it as negative 9n and 2n. From there, we need the greatest common factor of each column and each row. So in the first column, our greatest common factor is n. And in the second column, it's 1. In the first row, our greatest common factor is 2n, and in the second row, our greatest common factor is negative 9. As a reminder, with the box method, you want to check to make sure that your areas are all correct, especially with your negatives. So just do a mental check to make sure your areas are right. And if they are, you're set. What's on the side is one of your factors, so 2n minus 9, and your other factor is what's on the top, n plus 1. All right, you're set to go do homework 3. And I'm going to repeat myself here. On this homework, it's going to be really important to show your work on a piece of scratch paper or something. All right, good luck.